I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, you've brought us here together to serve in this capacity. Please give us wisdom, forethought, and good planning to serve the residents of Adams County. We ask your blessing and your help in these matters, and we come to serve you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay. That was in process.
There. All right.
Steve, can you hear us?
I've got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we were having a few issues getting everything going, but I think Ethan sent another join WebEx meeting thing. I don't know what happened to the first one, but now we should be okay.
Okay, good deal.
Just can't see him, that's all. Just can't
Very
see.
good. So Steve's here by remote, so we will go ahead and get started. We've got the minutes from January 16th, 2024. You've got 23 on here, but,
Yes, I do. I'll change that.
okay.
I'll correct that after we sign it and everything.
Any other questions or?
You corrected those that
I did.
okay.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from last week.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and second to approve the minutes from January 16th, 2024. All right, thank you.
Ooh, whoops. Got it. Let me go and change. I do actually think I have.
All right, Tony, what all do you have for us today?
Second and third, that's. Yeah. Okay,
Steve's in Florida.
here's that. I will fix that with Dave.
He heard the ice storm was coming and he ran away.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start with the monthly weights and measures report submitted by Inspector Dan Hackman. I laid that out in front of you. I think I gave you guys a copy, didn't I?
We haven't got.
Oh, I didn't give you one yet?
We got Nate's reports.
Too busy trying to get the meeting going again.
Oh,
Thank you, sir. We need a story.
Thank you. Well, I got stories for you. You just haven't read them.
Okay.
There's Steve.
We tried. I went to your suggestion about that
All
story.
right, I'd accept a motion to enter this report into record.
So move.
Second.
All right, motion carries.
I'm just blowing your lead, Jim.
All right,
Okay. I'm going to have two different Allied weekly health insurance claims. Excuse me. The first weekly health insurance claim is for $39,668.33. $39,668.33. Of that, medical is $58,283.16. And then we had voids of $18,614.83. And I verified claimants, $39,668.33, and that one you will need to sign.
and that's all medical.
All medical, and I forgot to sign that.
All right, I'd accept a motion to approve that claim.
So move.
Second.
All right. Motion carries.
Okay. The next weekly health insurance claim, and partly why we have two is because they had a delay on the week before and did not, they sent it at the correct time, but said they had a delay and it didn't come till the day after your meeting. That's why there's two. And this is in the amount of $103,836.92. 103,836.92. Of that, medical is $77,677.11. And prescription RX is $26,159.81. I again verified claimants on this one, and the amount was $103,836.92.
Okay. Any questions on that claim? If not, I accept the motion to approve it as presented.
So move.
Second.
All right,
I
thank
don't
you.
think, I don't think much out there, so. I think they figured out that one part of that, or somewhere, I think. I think that's the only one I have. Next, I have payroll AP claims, which are the benefits, insurance, and that type of thing associated with payroll. And the amount of the payroll AP claims is $328,400.61. $328,461.
All right, if any questions on that, otherwise I accept the motion to approve that claim as presented.
So move.
Second.
All right, motion carries.
Okay. I don't know if, well, we'll wait. If Ed isn't here by the time it gets to him, I'll make his report for him because he's dealing with a couple of things, but we'll wait and see if he gets here in time or not. If he doesn't, he sent an email and told me what to say, so. Otherwise, the only other thing I have is Clayton's gonna bring up because I gave it to him to do. That was nice of him. But I have a couple of things, I guess, but that's all that I have then.
All right, thank you, Tony. Okay, Nate, what do you have for us today?
Good morning.
Morning.
Little update here, the small structures and culverts, list has been sent over to the surveyor. I know I talked about that before. It is just about ready to go out for quotes. I'm going to send that out to suppliers here, hopefully either at the end of this week or the first of next week. Once I have that, then I'm going to be sending it out to contractors as well, get quotes for installation, reviewed that, kind of the scope of work with one contractor, and they seemed eager to put some numbers together. So I think I should be able to have quotes for both materials and installation by the end of next month, and then we can try to get those scheduled for construction through this year. There's about 16. I might add another one in 17 because there's two right across the road from each other, not a T road. Stand up, I think up on 1050 North is where those two are at. So
No.
hopefully I'll be able to get both of those done, just get those finished all together.
Yeah,
Related to the small structure list,
you're not gonna close all the roads within 1 square mile.
on Easter, actually. So, no, probably not over a weekend like that. No, I'll try to avoid that, hopefully. I do have a proposal from Jansen and Spons Engineering to renew the inspection of our small structures. There's a couple adjustments I want to try to make to that list. But before I end up doing that, I just wanted to kind of outline for you kind of why I'm looking at doing that list. Right now, your current inspections are from 2017. It is dated 2018, but it was in the fall of 17. So they're really, right now, they're getting to 6, 7 years old at this point. So we're starting to add up. My plan would be to, rather than doing everything at one time and spending quite a bit in one shot, my hope was to go and do inspections on 2 townships a year. That way you'd have a 6-year rotation for your inspection. Certainly the sooner we start, the ones that would be the last 2 townships would mean their inspections were getting almost over 10 years old at that point. But once we get on that rotation, it'd be a little easier for us to budget around that. I probably will edit the proposal to remove the structures under 48 inches in diameter. That should remove about 10% of our structures in an inventory, or about 30, possibly a few more. I didn't go through and individually count them all, but there's about 340 structures that would be inspected the way that's set up, but I'd probably try to get that closer to 300 or less. But we would certainly keep those in our GIS. The benefit of this is I want to try to merge the data that Jansen and Spahn currently owns. We didn't pay them for the data, we paid them for the book. So my goal would be is to have them, when they do the inspections, import everything directly into our county GIS system. It'd be kind of a test case for us, but then what I'd be able to do is share with you as a commissioners access to that, and from your phone, you could look at the latest inspection report on those structures.
Is that something Ethan would be involved in?
Ethan would be instrumental in that. That's
Okay.
only really possible because you have Ethan in a GIS system to import that. So my goal is to take their spreadsheet, import that into our county GIS, and then the entire book that's on the shelf, you could access from your car. And so, and then also when we're doing the inspections, most of the inspection report information would be filling in cells that would be in our GIS system and then attaching photographs. If that works, then my hope would be is that in 2025 or 2026, we can start to implement that sort of system for other pieces of infrastructure within the county. It may be a way for us to do the sign inventory. It might be a way for us to do field tiles or crossings as the guys are working with that technology that we have access to. But this is a test case. It certainly shrinks the amount of cost for the mobilization and the inspections themselves, although this is a pretty big proposal. So I'd send you kind of where that's at. It's going to change a little bit. If you're comfortable with it, I think we've got more than enough money within the Cume Bridge budget currently to absorb what's proposed for 24 and 25. I would just have to budget across that, and I think I can reduce that cost a little bit as well.
So would that require new software?
Nope. It's essentially building within the software that we have currently.
Really?
Yep.
Now,
So,
in your report, you talk about anything under 48 inches being reviewed internally by highway personnel.
yep. So
And that would be,
me, Brad, Paul. So we would be essentially the ones looking at any issues that we'd have with some of those smaller diameters. And I would certainly make sure that Brad and Paul have access to that same software. So if they're out in the field, they see a problem, they can photograph that. And when they're in that software, the intent would be is that those photographs would be geocoded to the location. So you wouldn't have to remember where you were at when you took the pictures because it's going to remember where you were at when you took the pictures.
Oh.
And I don't need survey grade photographs. If you're within 100 feet of the crossing, we're going to be able to track that down, and it's certainly more accurate than that. So that would be the intent. It'd give them a tool for reporting some issues and documenting when we found those and what we were doing. So that.
so Brad's gonna have to be crawling through these pipes.
Hopefully, nobody's gonna have to get into the pipes. The 48 inches one, maybe, I don't know. I'm not gonna fit into 36 myself anyway, so. So let's hope we don't have to get into those. Usually, or when you've got issues with those, you've got settlement in the shoulder, or you've got something as far as the pavement deflection is going to give you some indications of some of those issues. I don't think it's worth spending the amount of money that they're asking for the inspections when we really know when there's problems. Fair time on those, and they're simple to replace. So you're spending quite a bit of money on inspection when that funds could go to replacing maybe even a third of the pipe or half of the pipe cost itself. So,
Well, that sounds like a good way to be more efficient.
yeah,
For good.
so,
Thanks for doing that.
no, and it gets you on a schedule, so that's just, you're never more than 6 years out on an inspection report after that cycle's gone through. So, just a little update, the EJCDC, that's the Engineers Joint Contract Document Council for the papers, if they're asking. I've reviewed this with Clayton. We've made some edits to put a pretty rough template together. I sent you all a copy of what your contracts would look like. So your documents between us and your consulting engineers, here's a sample of one right now, double-sided. So it's 10 pages with kind of cover sheets included.
Did you send that to Mark and Clayton?
Yep, so they should have those. So I made some edits from what I had done before at Wells County to add some language specific to the state of Indiana, but this would allow you a template for your consulting engineers whenever we're working on it. I had noticed, I reviewed some with Brad, and he was kind of dissatisfied with how the language was on a couple contracts, but I said, it's their house contracts. Now, every contract in the future we're going to work with, except for maybe NDOT, we'll have to delegate to what they have. But anything we're doing with local funds would follow this format. And then as far as the funding, then what the consultants will provide to us is their not to exceed line items, their scope of work, their hourly rates that would work for about 18 months would be my intent. And any certifications that they would have as far as their ability to operate in Indiana in that capacity. So, and you'll be able to review, once you're familiar with these contracts, it'll take you 5 minutes to identify what are they doing for how much, when are they going to do it by, and what's our risks. And so all of that would be fairly standard. And that same 5 minutes applies to the attorneys. So they're not starting over and trying to do a back and forth agreement. They provide us the
Steve,
attachments.
did you look at those or did you have any?
No, I didn't have any questions on it.
And it's simple enough. It's our agreement. So if we want to make changes to those, we'll just simply add a revision date to it, and there'll be new language in the future for those. And so I just need to know what those are, so I provide those to any of the vendors or consultants that we work with. So
I mean, to me, it seems like a pretty good idea to have our in-house contract to present.
I agree. Yeah, that's why we work together
Okay,
to get it done.
good.
now these are, I mean, some of these contracts are $100,000 plus agreements, so I think we should have a strict hand in how we formulate those. So, no, thank you again to Mark and Clayton for working with me on that. I'll be happy to put that into place in the future. On the community crossings, I had you sign the financial commitment letter the last meeting. We got that scanned. The application's ready to go. In review, you've got a county ordinance that says we have to do a different process as far as some of the paperwork. So you have another letter that says you're authorizing the letter that you signed last meeting. So next time I'll have that letter involved with the one I send to the state. This is just an internal document, so that department heads aren't applying for grants that aren't essentially approved by the commissioners. Rather than just ignore it because you signed a different letter, I went ahead and filled that one out. So you'll have that in the future.
These both look like the
With the
same
copy.
document.
Yeah, you got 2 copies. If you sign both, you give one to Tony, give one to me. Essentially, this is just internal. If and when we are awarded, there's other paperwork that I'll actually have to fill out and send over to the auditor's office, identifying the final grant amount and the award numbers and purchase order numbers with the state. And then those will go to council to appropriate the grant funds that were awarded. So.
All right, Steve, did you have, I don't know if you had those, you probably don't have this document, I don't suppose.
I do have, I think, Nate, you had sent that to us previously, correct?
Yeah, okay.
So that would have gone out yesterday, right?
Yes,
So-
I did get a chance to review that. Not that I understood it completely, but I did get a chance to review it. Thank you for working on that, Nate.
So I'd accept a motion for approval for me to sign the request for grant application.
So move.
Second.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
And I'll take
It's,
the-
we're asking for 1.5 million. Yeah, this just essentially mirrors identically what the financial commitment letter that was signed at the last meeting. So it's just an internal step we gotta go for. So,
A lot of that is because State Board of Accounts, when they come in and do the audits and they pull something on a grant, that's in our office, so we have to be able to show them the documentation that goes with that grant. And this is part of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
for other departments, they may not have the same process for application. The state makes me sign a financial commitment letter. This essentially mirrors that same process. So for other departments, their grants, they want to have that same step. So
Nate, you just want to keep both of these, because you're gonna have to bring it back to council.
yep, with the other forms I'll have to do when I go to
And
council. for that.
after council approves, it's all on the same page, we'll check the box. Dennis will sign off after they approve it, and then you can give me one copy and keep one.
And I'll do all of that once I know the state's awarded us, because they weren't going to distribute any funds until we go out to bid anyway. So there won't be any money transferring until,
This just gives us a paper trail that is required, so.
yep, that's perfectly fine. No, I read the ordinance, I'm like, okay, that's, makes sense why we do that. I just didn't know that was last week. So, it's all right. Adams County crash heat maps. I have requested from NERC, that's the Northeast Indiana Regional Coordinating Council. They do our traffic count data and crash data. They work with Aries and the Sheriff's Department as far as pulling those reports. I have requested from NERC that they develop a crash heat map. Essentially what that is just the location of the crashes within the county on the county roads. And then it does like a cool or hot zones, depending on where those crashes are. And it's usually over a 5-year period, because we don't have enough crashes in the county for that to really show up. So I
Does it
want,
give different weight to different crashes as far as extent of damage or seriousness or bodily injury?
no, it's going to look for property damage or personal injury. Those level of crashes that are going to show up are going to show up as crashes in there. The types of crashes, the detail of those crashes, that's more than what the heat map's there for. What it's looking for is it's looking for areas of interest. That way, if you ask me or Brad, we think that this intersection is quote unquote unsafe. Well, I want to have some data that goes beyond that as far as, is there actually accidents that are happening, or maybe there's accidents happening in an area that we're not really recognizing this. What it does is it helps you as the executive of the county to recognize the intersections that are of interest. It's one of the pieces that would go into our local road safety plan. So we're going to try to identify those areas. I want to use that as part of the county comprehensive plan as we start looking at different routes to see where are people traveling or having accidents. One of the things that we'll probably pull out of that heat map is I'm going to separate the crashes that are animal related. So deer crashes I'm going to separate that as a separate area, because you'll have a hot zone of crashes in one area and you'll wonder why that is. And when you pull the deer crashes out, they disappear. Typically, the deer crashes in Wells County was about 30% of the crashes in the county were deer related. I don't have that number yet in Adams County because they had not done that for you. They didn't have
So
it on
is this
record.
report anything that coordinates with our sheriff's department?
All the data that NERC pulls are the crashes that get reported by the sheriff's department. So it's the reports that they do that get pulled by NERC.
All
So-
departments. They pull
Oh.
reports from all departments.
Yeah.
So it'd be Fern, Decatur, Sheriff,
Yeah.
Geneva, so he can get a complete.
Have you seen reports like that?
I deal with the gentleman up there, I used to deal when I was on state police and stuff, looking for, like I said, hot spots.
Yep.
The last time I did this, like I said, we don't have that many crashes, like, I know they looked at it for like 700,000, 27, to expand that, and then put a turning lane and all that. The data doesn't justify that.
Yep.
Well, we had a bad accident. Yeah, we had one bad accident in 10 years. That doesn't justify
Correct.
NDOT standards. So that's why he's doing it for 5 years. And get us, at least it'll show up.
Yeah. Hopefully you can see it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Good.
So it's a starting point for us. I'm not sure what exactly we'll see in that, but it is helpful visually for you, for council, to actually see kind of what we're looking at. And when I say we're looking at a safety project in an area, NDOT may not even consider it as something of interest, but for us locally, one crash seems like too many for people. I get that, but I want to make sure that we're at least mindful and not kind of ignoring the safety statistics that are there.
We can tell where to put all our roundabouts.
Yeah, all the roundabouts you want to put in.
Let's start with the solar stop sign. But that would be a perfect example, justifying the expense of that type of equipment. If you choose to do that, this will show it. Because if it shows a high crash rate, then we can also go back and we can look at e-ticket and see if we have a high number of failure to yields or running the stop sign there too, which would help give data for that.
Yep.
Like Brad told you, those signs are quite expensive. Does the data justify the expense?
And when you're interested in a hotspot that shows up in the county, then we can actually pull the crash reports that go into that hotspot. Rather than look at all of them,
Right.
hundreds or thousands of crash reports, you're looking at a specific targeted area. You can actually pull those reports, actually break those down. What are the types of crashes that are happening? Right turn, crossing the center line, stop, failure to yield. Those sort of crashes you can then sort out and then say, okay, what can we do or what should we do that wouldn't potentially have an impact or won't have an impact? Maybe it is just an area because you've got a higher traffic and there's other things that can be done, or maybe you can't effectively address it. So
Yeah.
it's a starting point. When you see it, you'll be kind of surprised, why didn't we do this before? That's kind of what I'm expecting the reaction to be, is when you see that, you're going to be like, well, I want to know what have we done? And you're going to want to see quick changes, and it's not. It's going to be a 5-year cycle we'll intentionally try to update. So,
Very good.
all right. And then lastly, just so you're an FYI to you, I did register for the NDOT Bridge Design Conference. It's actually in Indianapolis, but there's an online version of it, so I can essentially attend from my office here. So it'll just be a full day for their itinerary, and there's no cost to it. So I'm happy to participate in that. So, but other than that, thank you very much on the community crossings. I will get that completed and submitted today. Is my
Okay.
intent. So,
Very good.
all right.
Steve, any questions for Nate?
Just how's that working with Wells County?
It's working out all right. I probably could spend more time over there than I am, but I am trying to limit myself as best I can. But it did get approved by the commissioners after your last meeting, so we're on our way. So
Good.
trying to just track their meetings and stay on top of what I can and hope I'll be over there Wednesday afternoon for a bid opening. So I'm gonna try to jump around a little bit, but I think it's functioning as best as can be expected. So
Good.
we'll get our 90 days through and then see what ends up happening after that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nate.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Brad, do you have anything for us?
Got headquarters down there. One thing today.
All right.
We got our drill for MVH and LRS. Deliver. Attorney.
NBA.
Cool. There you go.
Geographic information system. So that's our. The money. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, Steve, didn't realize you weren't gonna be here today, so. No worries, Brad, you're fine. All right, so for the month of January, the MVH, the draw was $289,613.74. $289,613.74. On the backside, the local road and street drill for the month of January. $45,853.76. $45,853.76. Brad, just because I don't have that report in front of me, how does that compare to same month last year? I'm just about even. Okay. Last year on the MVH, it's actually down about $5,000. And on the local road and street, it's actually $500 higher. Okay, good deal. Very comparable.
All right, I accept a motion to enter this report into record.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you.
And other than that, guys are out.
All right. Well, how much ice did we get this morning? I mean, it looked like, it was warming up enough to where it wasn't getting real icy.
Now, the main roads were a little slick at the start when I got up early,
Yeah.
and they improved quickly. The bridges were slick, so that's kind of what we were hitting the hardest today. And it's like right now, it's basically more of a slush than anything.
Good.
So some of the back roads are still obviously going to be slick.
Is it supposed to refreeze tonight or is it?
No.
Stay?
No, I think the low, the high today was what, like 38 or 39. It's going to be 32, 34 overnight. So, and then if you look, next week, 60.
Really?
So yeah, Steve will be back and it'll be 60 degrees.
He's bringing the sunshine back.
I'll bring it back, guys.
All right.
But yeah, yep, it's supposed to be warm the next 2 weeks.
All right, good.
So that's all I got.
All right, thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brad. All right, Rick, what do you have for us?
In the past, I've talked about the interior doors here from the gymnasium, about getting those secured for after hours from the gym. I do have a quote to get those changed out.
Steve, can you hear Rick all right?
I can, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
So I'd like to present that to you.
This is just for the one set of doors between the gym and.
That's correct. Those interior double doors. That's what it is.
So I don't know if you want to explain what you talked about a little bit earlier as far as what this would do for us and why it would be important.
Well, anybody from the gymnasium after hours, obviously the hours are from 8 to 4 p.m. We get traffic that comes through those doors and they're wandering the building. And then the park and rec like to be open when we're not.
Evenings, Saturdays,
Evenings,
weekends.
Saturdays, weekends, Martin Luther King Day,
Yeah.
just for example. And we have no way of controlling to have this building locked and secured. So that's really what this is about. And then there's some more future things that I'd like to do to the gymnasium. I don't know if you want me to elaborate on those or not, Stan.
I don't know if you need to go into that.
Yeah.
It's up to you, but I think the doors are the big thing right now.
I think, yeah, to do progress anything more, this is what really needs to be done.
Yeah, there again, Steve, you probably don't have the advantage of seeing this document.
I don't. Rick, could you just explain for me, are we getting new doors, new hardware, new locking hardware? Exactly what are we getting?
We're gonna use the same slabs,
Okay,
but we had to do some things so the fire marshal would approve this.
sure.
So it's hardware, wiring. We've got to flip the doors. It was the cheaper route to go. That's why we're gonna use the same. But that's what it is, hardware, electronics on it. It would have an alarm system on it. This will be tied into our, fire alarm system.
Yeah.
Basically all above. It's-
Do we use those double doors as double doors, or could we get by with just a single door there if we did something different?
Those double doors are nice. If we have to have something big to get through there, that's the only really double door except for the front door where all the steps are. And then we have that ramp that we can go up in there. So, I think it is important to have those double doors.
Gotcha. I just know how much more expensive it is when we're trying to do something like this with double doors versus a single door.
Right.
Hey, Rick, what's the amount we're talking about here? How much would company?
This is,
721480. That's the quote.
that's the quote, Lakeland Electronics, and they are out of Angola, Indiana.
14 or 40?
7214.
14 and then 80.
Dot 80.
Okay, good.
Eric, would you like to contribute to that fund?
I think we've used Lakeland Electronics in the past.
They're the ones that did our keypad system.
Right.
They're familiar with our building, yes.
Well, I guess, Steve, we talked about this a little bit before too, but, you know, that way the Parks Department could have the gym and their exercise center open whenever they wanted to without allowing people to come up into the county offices. So
Yeah.
to me, it seems like a good idea.
No, I agree. I think Rick brought kind of that problem to us a meeting or two ago, and I absolutely support trying to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah, so as far as, funding this, I guess I would like to see it go ahead. So,
They're gonna be in 1138 or?
That's what I'd like to take it out of, 1138, 34006. So that would be Fund 1138, 34006.
so I'd accept a motion to approve this bid as presented, to rework the locks and egress system on those double doors. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, they're gonna just flip those doors around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
Okay, yeah, I'll vote in favor of that also. Very good, so. And then we'll have to talk to Jeremy and make sure that,
he understands what we're
And
doing.
I spoke to him, I have spoke to him about this gymnasium.
And Rick, that doesn't create any kind of a fire hazard or anything for those folks in the gymnasium that they can't escape would they have used that as a fire escape anyway? I just want to make sure fire marshal's okay with what we're doing.
Well, yeah, they are. I had to have them in here before I could even get this quote. That's what I did.
Good
So they
deal.
are
Thank
good
you.
with it? Yeah.
Okay, very good.
If you remember last meeting, I brought up about blowing breakers in the public defender's office.
Right.
And I believe that quote was $3,000. And thinking more about that and having conversation with Commissioner Steve Coon a little bit, what would you think about putting that money into the break room that we have? In other words, do a little bit more wiring in there, maybe more microwaves in there, just sprucing that up and making it a very nice break room.
See, I thought that's what we had voted to do here, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, wasn't it? Fix that break room up when we went to 8-hour days.
And that's when the employees got a half-hour lunch.
Right.
Right.
I think it became a break room. I don't know if we did much fixing up there.
No, we use that room for the State Board of Accounts to go into, which, you know, I mean, they could probably still use it, or we can find another location. It's just thought, just something.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a refrigerator, a microwave, and a
Yeah.
coffee maker,
Yeah.
and a table with some chairs. That's what's in there right now.
Maybe we could produce a nicer table. I mean, it's not many things in there, and you're more than welcome, obviously, to go look at it, but maybe just add to it. Maybe there needs to be 2 or 3 more microwaves. But let's, no mistake about it, by doing that, that means that we need to eliminate some of that stuff in the offices.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole purpose of blowing the breakers. But that's, I mean, we've not done anything in there yet. It did get approved to do that in there that you did last week, but Gene has not had time to start that yet. So just
Well,
something,
could we redirect Gene to look at that break room and see how the wiring is in that break room?
that's why I'm discussing it.
Yeah.
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 So,
Steve, what's your thoughts?
I absolutely support that. I think that was kind of the discussion that we had last week, and that was if we could, if the employees would be willing to go along with that, that seems like the right answer to me. You know, I know it's nice to have all that stuff in your office, but it sure makes more sense for us if we can consolidate all that equipment and the heavier wiring and everything in one location, and then encourage all the staff to use that versus anything that they've got in their offices.
Well, it would help on further down the road if we do it for this office, then the next office is gonna want it done, and then where does the ball end? So if we fix up the break room and not spend that $3,000 per room, per office, I think this would be the better way to go.
Espresso machine, waffle maker.
Rick, is the break room large enough? I don't know that I've been in there. Is it large enough to accommodate our staff that we're talking about trying to force them to use that versus allowing them to have the equipment in their own offices?
well, I think we'd have to create more seating. Tony, what do you think?
It's a little tight right now. If you put much more in there, it would be even tighter. I mean, I think right now, since the timekeeping was changed, a lot of people tend to eat at their desk, or they'll have a department head that is exempt and doesn't have to clock out, or an elected official or whatever will go grab food somewhere, and then the folks will eat at their desk and continue to work in some cases. In some cases, they stop work and eat at the desk. I would, if the three of you would go look at it personally, you'd get more of an idea. But I know when State Board was in there, we moved a couple of more tables in there for them. And how many they have in there? 3 or 4?
Yeah.
At the most usually, and it was pretty tight. And obviously it was kind of hard to use as a break room for the employees when State Board of Accounts was in there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know how, is it just one office that the breakers are tripping? Are you having that issue in other offices?
There is issues in other offices. That was just getting to be more frequent down there. That's why I targeted that one. But yeah, it just depends, you know, we're running heaters underneath the desk, and we're running a microwave, and that's when they trip.
Well, let's change gears on that one. See what we can do with the break room as a common break room.
Okay.
You know, to where people, you know, would have some seating if they want to eat up there with a coworker, or if they want to just go up there to eat their food and go back to the office. But, you know, that was the intent anyway, I think, to provide them a place.
I will see what he comes up with and get back with you on it.
Okay.
So do we need to do anything about the motion that was made last week for the rewiring of that room?
I won't do anything with it.
Yeah, just,
Okay,
If Rick doesn't do anything with it, you probably don't need to.
all right.
And maybe you will.
If you change your mind, then it'll still be good. If
but
not,
the big thing is, I suppose, make sure they take that microwave out of their office, because that's probably what's blowing breakers.
Did you happen to go check on that then?
When I went down there, they were both on the phone.
Okay,
I did, Steve, when I went up.
thank you.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's all I have for now.
Okay. Well, when I came in the back way, the sidewalks and steps look good, so I appreciate you coming in early and overseeing all that.
Street was a little slick walking. Could you take salt to my truck? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I know this is a rough time of year for you, but, you know, working together with Parks
Yolanda.
Department personnel and stuff too.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without the parks, guys.
Yeah,
And Yolanda and Phil. So,
yeah. Very good. Thank you. Well, that makes more mess inside too, for sure.
yeah, it's just kind of just don't worry about that right now, because it's just gonna get tracked back in, but we'll get it cleaned up.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Ed, did you have anything for us?
Just real quick. I want to let you know that, good morning.
Morning,
Good
Ed.
morning.
We have sent out a little over 700 courtesy letters that have mailed to delinquent taxpayers for either late on their taxes, or maybe they didn't pay their 5% or 10% delinquent rate. They paid the taxes, but not the past due amounts. Or they may have not paid a ditch assessment or something like that. So when you add it all up, a little over 700 letters, that's been coming in real well. So just want to let you know. Next week, 2 events, 9 a.m., the Financial Planning Committee meeting in this room. And Steve Bailey, I gave you a bunch of information a couple weeks ago. Did you have a chance to look through that?
I have. Looks good to me, Ed. I'll be there.
I'll email the other 2 gentlemen here then and make sure that that's all ready to go.
Thank you.
It should be pretty quick on that. And then at 1 p.m., after your commissioner meeting, we have the certificate sale. There's 4 parcels. Nate, you or Mark going to be there? We have that 1 parcel on Monmouth Road that we just need to make sure we got our ducks in a row for all that.
Okay.
So,
yeah, Mark and I, one of us, I'm sure will be there.
okay. And that's all I have. Everything's rolling right along.
Very good.
Unless you have any questions.
We got,
Steve Bailey, you kind of got a Wizard of Oz thing going on here with this big screen, so. You know, I'm glad I'm not there to see it. Scares me.
Okay, now we know the man behind the curtain.
Yes.
He has good teeth.
Well, we got to meet Alicia Nashala in your office last week.
Yes, that worked out really well. It really
Thanks
well.
for the use of your office
She
to
was
allow the
appreciative
comptroller
and,
to visit.
They really weren't there very long, but they were, it was a good meeting place, and then they toured the whole facility, so, worked out real well.
I thought it was interesting when I said, well, how many people do you have in your apartment? She says, oh, we run pretty lean. She says, I've only got about 50 people in my department. Then we walked into your office and I thought, well,
I have
there's
two.
Kathy and Kim and they're taking care of everything in
Yep,
here.
yep, they are.
So it just kind of speaks well of Adams County, I
Yeah,
think, being
yeah.
efficient.
She actually made mention of that too.
Now, that's actually, she's the comptroller, which would be the auditor, not the treasurer.
When, we saw her Thursday evening at the event down at Bern, she was saying about, the famous Mellencamp of Adams County. So, I
Which
don't
one
know.
would that be?
That was a pretty
That'd be
good.
John.
That's Kay Fillenkamp.
Kay Mellencamp, yeah.
Yeah.
But Ed was nice enough to allow the use for the
Oh,
comptroller
yeah.
to visit because we didn't know, they had sent out an invite to all county and city officials. We didn't know how many might show up, and our office is not as roomy as the treasurer's office,
So
so,
we had that big conference table, so
Yeah.
it works out well.
yeah, so yeah.
Any-
good.
Anybody?
I know you were out a couple days with your wife. How's she doing?
It's been a long week.
Long week?
I'm heading up here this afternoon here in a bit.
Okay. And,
Yeah. It's getting better. Sunday was better. Yesterday was even a little bit more better, but one day at a time. It'll take a few weeks.
Did you have her out shoveling snow yet?
She was not shoveling snow.
your office was running fine. I went up there for some information and Kathy said, give me a couple minutes and I'll have it. And she did a great job.
It's amazing how quick everything is at the fingertips and how well everybody does. Of course, she's been here for 21 plus years, but Kim now is really rolling in. She's on her second year full-time and just doing a wonderful job. As many problems as other offices have, I do not have that. So I'm blessed with that.
Very good.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. Renee, do you have an update for us on your projects?
Yes, sir, I do.
You want to introduce yourself and your organization, just to make sure everybody knows who you are and what your organization is? Okay.
Yes, sir. My name is Renee LeBlanc, founder and director of Crossroads Community in Adams County. And today I just wanted to come in and give an update on the year in review for 2023 for Crossroads. In October, I became the first CAPRC registered in Adams County, which is a certified peer recovery coach, providing counseling services to people. And as of today, we have 6 clients receiving counseling services through Crossroads. In November, we started operating out of office space on the south side of Bern at the Bern shops across from Affolter Tractor. We took the first office on the north side of that building, and we have just voted to take over the second office as we are already running out of space. Our recovery meeting, Celebrate Recovery, which is faith-based recovery, 12 steps, on last Tuesday had 19 participants, so we're already running out of space, and we're going to expand and connect the adjacent office space to be able to hold more people for recovery support group meetings. We also provide Smart Recovery, which is non-faith-based. It's evidence-based or more scientific approach, and all pathways of recovery are welcome at our support group meetings. In December, we closed out the year, and we just want to say thank you as a whole to Adams County. We raised over $100,000 in the organization, and we are still actively pursuing housing as soon as a suitable home or building becomes available. So we're ready to move forward as soon as one becomes available on the market. And in January or this year, we also hired our first staff member because we have several people coming through during the day seeking CAPRC services or counseling services. We are also approved with FSSA or Family Social Service Administration for VR services, which is vocation rehabilitation or employment services such as job readiness training, job placement assistance, and transportation, helping 5 individuals now in that aspect. And things are going well. And just currently, we were awarded the opioid settlement money. And today was not only to give a review, but to acknowledge that award and say thank you to Adams County for granting us the opioid settlement grant for 2023. It'll be put to good use. Things are going well. Numbers are beyond what we imagined, especially only being open 2 months and already needing to expand, hire people, and housing remains the main issue we're faced with, but we're still hopeful that it'll present itself, hopefully in 2024, so we can open a recovery home here in Adams County.
Well, I mean, for many, many years, you know, we've had, recognized the need for rehabilitation services, both housing and counseling both, and for alcohol and drugs alike. So, you know, this is a big step forward for us, especially when we had the opioid steering money, from those come back to the county. And then when we put the opioid steering committee together to make a recommendation to the commissioners, you know, that just, it just kind of opened doors as we went. And so hopefully those doors will continue to open for you and to help residents of Adams County.
Thank you for that, and thank everyone for their encouragement and support. I know it was a bumpy road, but we're making progress moving forward, and I'd like to continue checking in periodically, just letting y'all know any updates going on with Crossroads so we can all stay in the know of what's going on and keep y'all informed on it. So
Thank you for coming in.
any questions?
Renee, how much was the opioid money you got? What's the amount of money on
Is it
there?
okay to say?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 75,000,
Uh-huh.
but split into 2 requirements for the spending. Half of it was to be used for recovery services, and the other half is earmarked for recovery housing.
That's the house you look at.
Yes, sir.
And the house you're looking for, that's for people who are what, addicts, or people who are recovering addicts, or what kind of people would be used in the housing you're talking about?
We don't like to label people as having a problem with drugs or alcohol because then it identifies them as a specific demographic group. These are people struggling with any of life's challenges, hurts, habits, and hangups. We know anger can land someone in prison far longer than drinking a beer, so it's any life-controlling issue. But predominantly, yes, they do suffer or struggle with SUD and mental health issues. So housing is for anyone coming out of homelessness, incarceration, community corrections, house arrest, or 28-day treatment. They don't have to come from that. It's open to the availability of bed space, but
I would have to assume that you work very closely with community corrections and probation and child services or whoever you need to.
yes, sir. We are currently working with 1 or 2 individuals with community corrections.
Very good.
Yep.
What's the 75,000? How would you categorize that? Where'd that come from?
It came from the commissioners. This was part of the opioid settlement money, the Purdue Pharma lawsuit.
Many billions. lots of money nationwide.
Yeah, exactly.
40, 50, 60, whatever it is, I don't know.
And whatever the commissioners or the steering committee decided to give this year, they put out an application and,
Tip of the hat.
yep,
Well, of all the money that the state received through the Indiana Attorney General's office, the state kind of kept half of it, as you would expect them to do, and then they sent the other half to the counties and municipalities.
Good.
And so then it was up to the commissioners to decide what happens to that money. And so that's when we put the committee together to make a recommendation.
and there was an application process and a decision-making process, and Crossroads.
That's unbiased, but best use.
Yeah. Well, and, the opioid steering committee consisted of people like Ian Gilbert and Jack Odom and Danielle Reed and Ann Razzo and
Sam Conrad.
Sheriff, I don't know if you were on that.
I am.
Yeah.
It's the JRAC committee, the Community Corrections Committee,
Yeah.
JRAC committee is who's on that committee.
But those are the people that typically have to deal with the rehabilitation issues that come up. And so, we just felt like it was very appropriate to get a recommendation from them on how to award this money. So, okay.
And lastly, again, thank you everyone who continues to support, encourage, pray for us as we're trying to take our part in doing something good in the community. So
All right.
I'll be back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Mark? Or is Mark Winston?
Yeah.
Doug?
I am, technically, I'm here today. I think I'm okay.
Thanks.
Well, I'm going to present today. I don't have anything to present today.
Oh. Oh, all right.
The replat is not gonna be
All right. Very good. So,
Well, thank you, Mark.
Not having anything.
other than that, you don't have anything to do at all. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to clear up, I missed the last council and commissioners meeting, but reference the school situation countywide where we had the bomb threats called in. There is some questions raised of what EMA's role was that,
Okay.
or the lack of. And I just want to let everybody know they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They were en route over to Huntington County for meeting, heard about it. They came back and told us that they were there if we need stuff. In our local plans, the EMA is not actually involved in the response of something like that. Their role is to support us to where if we wouldn't have a county-wide event with all three school corporations, let's say we needed buses to evacuate from one school, they would make arrangements with the other schools to get buses down there for us, so we're not taking our time up dealing with that. But how this happened, all three schools were involved, all three schools were on their own island, and we all did well. But I just heard some grumblings, and I'm also going to go to the council meeting and clear that up too, that why weren't they involved more? They were involved as what they were supposed to be. There was no issues with the EMA. They were available for us, our calls. It's just under the circumstance of what that threat was, they just weren't really needed. But they made themselves available to us, and we know they were available to us. So I just wanted to clear that up. I thought I heard some grumblings, and I just want to make sure that, no, EMA had the appropriate response and we're at our needs if needed. So I just want to make that clear.
Very good. Well, I know they're just an extremely supportive resource for everybody.
Correct, and that is their role, to where if we need something, we call them, they get it, find it, and then get it to us. So we don't have to take the time of trying to do that. They have the list, they have the contacts of everybody. They know, most of them they know personally. I mean, that's their role. That's what they work towards every day, is building those relationships to make phone calls and to make stuff happen. But they're not actually involved in the actual presence at those locations. That's not their role.
Okay.
All right?
Very good.
That's all I
I
have. Thank you.
appreciate that.
Just one question, did each school get one bomb threat or the multiple bomb threats being thrown around?
It was each school received an email, but that email went out to over 70 schools statewide.
And just Indiana, on no other states, right?
It has happened in other states other times, but just the week before, it's down around the Pendleton area, they had a bunch of them, so, but yes, it was an email sent to emails.
Okay, all right, very good. I mean, I'm good, but.
Yeah.
Dan had to step out for a minute, so
He's gonna make decisions on his own.
we'll take a quick break till he gets back.
Tony,
Yeah.
that first ABS weekly thing, that was 39,668?
Oh,
39, right? I want to grab that right now.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was.
let me look it up to be sure.
I think it was.
39,668.33.
I got the 3 in there.
Yeah.
Also, Tony, I've had the idea, in that break room, why don't you put each Chicago pizza in there?
Okay, little mini shop.
You put each of Chicago.
Yeah.
Use some pizza in the break room.
Just so you know, last week afterwards, you were asking about that. That's that one I abstained from.
Yeah, that's one, yeah, right, yes,
So,
because it was too high,
right.
right. It'll be better used now, I think.
Yes.
Don't be, that's the.
Tony, how about Cincinnati Reds wallpaper?
Yes, and maybe Skyline Chili.
What?
So I can't really put anything in there. I'd have to sign a conflict of interest.
So if you have a follow-up story with that, you can.
Yeah, I'll do separate. I'll do it on. Take care of that, yeah. Remember that.
I hope you guys haven't been talking about anything except official business.
Steve made 3 decisions while you were gone.
Yeah, word. Gonna fire everybody.
My turn.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know what happened to Steve. We see his golf cart or something.
Pictures.
He just had.
Maybe he took a break as well. I guess I do need to wait.
Oh, there
There it is.
There he is.
All right, the first thing I have to present is an ordinance, the short title for it is an ordinance amending and restating ordinance 2001-7, allowing money to be dispersed for lawful county purposes by pre-approval or prepayment. We previously discussed this. Back in 2001, there was an ordinance, and I can just read through this. Whereas many vendors and utility companies impose service charges and disconnect service for late payment, and whereas other situations arise where payments need to be made immediately, and whereas Indiana Code Section 36-2-6-4.5 allows the county executive to adopt an ordinance allowing money to be dispersed for lawful county purposes for the following. 1, property or services purchased or leased from the United States government, its agencies or political subdivisions. 2, license or permit fees. 3, insurance premiums. 4, utility payments or utility connection charges. 5, general grant programs where advanced funding is not prohibited and the contracting party posts sufficient security to cover the amount advanced. 6, grants of state funds authorized by statute. 7, maintenance or service agreements. 8, leases or rental agreements. 9, bond or coupon payments. 10, payroll. 11, state or federal taxes. 12, expenses that must be paid because of emergency circumstances. And 13, expenses described in this ordinance. Now therefore be it resolved, any payment for a fully itemized invoice or bill certified by the county auditor, which is allowed by the aforementioned guidelines, shall be paid or pre-approved when necessary. Each payment shall then be reviewed and allowed at the next regular or special county commissioners meeting following the pre-approval or prepayment of the claim.
And this came about just in case there's something that has to be approved with payroll or whatever the case may be. Since we have no meeting on the second Tuesday, this is kind of looking ahead if we have a conflict that we need something approved so payroll can be paid without you guys meeting that week. This ordinance covers that.
Correct. And because the previous ordinance was established in 2001, Indiana law has changed. The Indiana Code section referenced has changed since then, and it now includes payroll. So that's why we needed to amend it to add those newly added aforementioned guidelines.
I've got the old ordinance here. There was a couple of them that you didn't add. Is that because we don't need them anymore or?
So I just quoted the statute as is now. So if there are, in the old one, if there are some that are no longer, that's because they were removed.
Okay.
I don't know if this applies or where it falls, but at one time we had made allowances for an emergency fund, emergency expenditure out of the rainy day fund in case of disaster. I don't know if that,
Well, in the case of disaster, expenses that must be paid because of emergency circumstances.
Very good. I'll make motion, we accept ordinance
2024-1.
2024-1.
I'll just take this and get you a copy.
Steve? Steve, was that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
okay, I'll vote in favor of that also. Thanks for updating that.
Steve, since you are via remote, it was probably back in 2020, the county attorney said that it was fine to sign your name and put via remote next to it. I'm just making you aware. I don't know if you were on when that first took place or not, but he said that's perfectly legal. So just making you aware.
Good deal, thank you.
No problem. Then I'll take that back so that we'll record it and then get a copy on the plate.
All right, the second thing from our office, and I assume that some discussion has to be had on this one. I have a certificate of appointment by the Board of Commissioners for ADA Compliance Officer, appointing Shannon Green as the ADA Compliance Officer. So I don't know, first you want to have discussion about that?
Shannon, would that be agreeable to you?
Yeah, are we gonna have a conversation about compensation with that?
We sure could. Do you have any recommendations or thoughts or, we have not had a conversation about compensation. So part of it, depending on, how much additional time would be involved or what we would expect, as far as time being involved. I know in discussions with Nate, he said there's a wide range of opportunity for the ADA officer to pursue a lot of things. So what's your thoughts on that position?
I would be happy and, honored, if you will, to accept that, appointment. But I just would want to have some clear expectations on what your expectations are as the commissioners before we go down that path. And then maybe powwow with Nate and Brad to kind of get a better understanding of what the role entails, how much time I might have to spend on it, and then come back to you guys with a recommendation on compensation or, what your expectations for me would be, if that's okay. I wasn't expecting this today, so I'm a little.
This could be something that could take 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 hours. There's really I don't know.
I think if we had a clear expectation, probably, since the duties are rather vague at this point, if we had a clear expectation of how much time per week or per pay period should be allotted for that duty, then we could talk, pay.
Right.
And
Because
see.
Rex had done it, and before Rex, it was Tim Barkey.
So if you guys are okay with it, I will plan on working with Nate and Brad to kind of understand what the role requires, time-wise and duties-wise, and then I can come back to you guys next week with a recommendation on both of those things, maybe on expectations and on compensation, if you're okay with that.
Clayton, have you had any experience with that type of thing?
With ADA compliance?
ADA compliance and what our responsibilities are?
I think Nate has pretty extensive,
Okay.
It can get.
Yeah, and I'm fine with.
It can be very simple. It really depends on on your circumstances in that. And, when you need it, you want that person to be there. And-
correct.
And I agree. I believe that there should be some compensation for that responsibilities. If you had an issue, an involvement, certainly Shannon's gonna have to drop other responsibilities to take on and address that, because the ADA responsibilities need to be fairly timely in response. So, and
Well-
there's educational requirements that go into that, so she's going to absolutely have to add things to her schedule.
So will will we have to create a specific job description for that?
It probably would be wise with the compensation to amend her job description to include that, and then just simply say the ADA coordinator shall do these things, and then just say that that's part of her role. If for some reason you ever wanted to change that, I don't see that you would necessarily. I think it fits very well within her office and what she's doing.
I mean, one of the things that we did, like say with our plat book technician, we've got a separate description for that position, but yet it falls under the surveyor now. So I don't know if we would have a specific addendum that describes that position, but yet it could still fall under your.
Right. I think that would be a good idea, and the plat book technician is a great example, because me aside, as the person in my position right now, I think it would be wise for us to have some kind of documentation on the expectations, and then you could attach that to whatever position you wanted in the future. In 10 years, that might change. You might not want it in HR, you might want it back with engineer or building and planning or whatever the case may be. So I think it would be a good idea to have a specific description that states these are the duties and responsibilities of this position. And then that can kind of make it interchangeable amongst the other positions within the county as well.
And it makes a little difference when you have an elected official doing something else. Shannon's not an elected official, so that may be a totally different animal that'd be an attorney question, but.
So that, like I said, that's something, if you guys are okay with it, that I can sit down with Nate and Brad and do, pick their brains, but also do my own research from other counties and try to work up a description to bring to you next week, also with a recommendation on additional compensation for the additional responsibilities as well.
Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Elected official.
You can on that and get back with us next week.
She's an employee.
I agree with him and Shannon, work on the job description. Is this something the wage committee could look at as far as the compensation?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, those are two different things.
But I think the wage review committee typically looks at classifications, rather than specific wages.
But to answer your question, yes, I mean, I've worked, but not so much from a county perspective. I've worked a lot with ADA, related to private businesses, whether that now be their physical location or website presence, and having to defend against lawsuits for lack of ADA compliance. So I definitely, I agree that this is important. The one question, Nate, did you say, is there a time crunch for this appointment?
I need to identify the applicant in the CCMG application. So it was my understanding that you had appointed Shannon to that role. Even if you hadn't settled on the final job description and compensation, that I would be able to list her in that application.
Shannon, would you be agreeable to the appointment when negotiating in good faith for the hours and compensation, or would you not be comfortable with that? But I don't mean to put you on.
Well, I think what Nate's saying too is you already listed her.
Yeah, I've got it listed
And
right now.
even
It's not
though-
been submitted, because it was my understanding that it was, that is the intent of the commissioners to do that and within that role. But obviously it puts a little bit of a crunch on that. We just have to have one as a condition of the grant. Now, we're going to have one, it just comes down to.
Well, let me ask you this. In your experience, how much time do you think would be required for someone to do that appointment?
You're maybe looking at an hour a week, maybe. I mean, really for overall, as long as you haven't had grievances filed, which in talking to Brad, you don't have regular grievances. You don't have issues out in the county because you don't have county sidewalks or ADA ramps in the public right of way. So really it comes down to some of the meetings that are already currently happening, but you need to make a special carve out in those discussions to make sure that you're compliant with elements of ADA and kind of barrier-free, both design and operation. So it adds a layer of complexity to essentially what was her job that wouldn't necessarily be there if she was not the ADA coordinator. So I don't want to downplay it because it is important.
if we do additional compensation for this, would this be hours that you would do outside of your HR duties? Or in addition to your
It
HR?
would be in addition to HR responsibilities, right? But this has to go in front of council, correct? I mean, so to answer your question from earlier, I would be happy to accept your good faith as commissioners, but
Council is another story.
since it has to go in front of them, I would struggle a little bit to accept the responsibilities without some kind of guarantee on the back end. And I don't believe that can come from this board.
Hey, guys, just to refresh my memory, was Rex Moore the individual that had been appointed to this previously?
Yeah. Yes.
I guess I might be interested in hearing from Rex how much time he had to spend doing it. My guess is none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, just to give Nate a name, if he needs somebody to put on a contract, and if you need to appoint somebody as the ADA coordinator, and if it had been done previously by a commissioner, I would be fine doing it. I've got some familiarity with ADA. I've not been an ADA coordinator before, but my guess is that if we needed to have an ADA assistance of some kind, we would contract for it anyway. We would use a contractor, we'd use somebody that's certified for building and meeting ADA compliance. It wouldn't be Steve Bailey trying to design a bathroom so that it's ADA compliant.
Mark, do you have any thoughts on that?
We're talking about stuff that, I'm here for this, talking about stuff that I know. He's asking for an estimate. Part of my job, I can list all kinds of things that need to be done that aren't done. That I already can know, starting right now.
Would that be an appointment that you would be interested in?
I'm not trying to take anything from anybody at all, but I mean, I would do it if I wanted me to.
Yeah.
I feel more, that's ADA qualifications on buildings and entrance and rail on signs and all kinds of stuff that it has to do with that. Very familiar with it, because I deal with that in every commercial job that we do. When I built in the 10 years I've been inspecting it, type of railings that are required, type of grab rails, again, where the entrances are located, elevator accesses, all of that stuff. I do understand it, so.
Well,
If you need-
Wells County have appointed for their ADA officer.
They just appointed me after the fact. It says, oh, and by the way, you're going to be our ADA coordinator. So it really wasn't even necessarily discussion. And it was partly because the auditor had been the ADA coordinator prior to that.
Well, if we were to do an about face here,
Have we made a motion yet, or?
No, there's no motion.
So there's no motion.
It's still under discussion.
if we were doing about face here, and if Mark would be willing to accept that appointment, that may be a more appropriate from that knowledge base as far as his building experience and inspection experience.
So why don't we still go forward with creating a job description and understanding what the expectations of the role are, and then come back to you guys next week and evaluate which job in the county is most appropriate for those additional responsibilities to fall onto. Because I'm not necessarily sold that my job is the perfect place for it. I 100% agree with Mark. He's been doing this for 20 years. It makes a lot of sense for it to be in his office as well. So why don't we get something on paper, and then we can talk about it again next week and kind of look at all of the job descriptions that we think might be relevant and see which one makes the most sense to attach it to.
If we wait till next week, does that put you in a bind with the community crossings?
If you're comfortable with having Steve Bailey as essentially your interim ADA coordinator, then that would probably be the better circumstance for me, so that I'm not turning it in the last week. It's not critical from the standpoint of saying that that's permanent because that changes depending on the designation in that. But if you're okay with appointing Steve Bailey as your interim, because right now you don't technically have one, you should have one in active. So it should be something that can be kind of appointed so that there's something, because if you had something come up and you had someone asking for accommodations, we'd essentially be looking to who would step up to do that.
So we could appoint Steve Bailey as interim until Shannon gets this to us
Essentially
next
identify
week.
him as the interim contact, and so if something came up, a grievance, we could immediately deal with that, and we'd rally around Steve to help him to deal with that in the interim, and then it gives you some time to identify a full description of that job, find out where that would place, and then simply change hand that hat off to who that person would need to be.
I would certainly be fine with that. That way, moving forward, at least we'd have it better defined.
No, and I think that Mark's exactly correct. That there are a lot of different elements within that role that fall within what he identifies. And I am from handrails, ramps, steps, elevators. I mean, the braille, the signage for these rooms, all of those things are details within that. And then also within what Shannon's role is comes down to operations, programs, how do you send out information, those things, the website. So there's a lot of different elements that fall under that. And so it's extra responsibilities for whoever ends up having that. So,
Well, if you would do that, between, excuse me, Shannon or let me ask you, Steve Bailey, if you'd be willing to accept the interim appointment.
Yes.
Okay, and then from here on out, if we can actively determine a job description and expected time commitment for that, then we can find the appropriate person and look at somebody like Mark that seems to fit that role.
absolutely.
So, all right, that sounds good. Thank you, Steve.
You need a motion.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need a motion on Steve being the interim.
All right,
And I'll make a motion that we appoint Steve Bailey as intern for the ADA.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
So, and hopefully that doesn't hold you up.
Nope,
mean, if we
that's-
need to
that keeps
sign-
things moving along, so.
Do we
And then
need
you
to
can just
sign that?
Notify them, right?
It is essentially 3 blanks on the form.
So we
So
need to sign that today?
Well, we don't have an appointment form made up for.
I don't have an appointment form made up for
and I don't need to
this
send the appointment form.
situation.
So it's-
You don't
that's all.
need to.
I don't need to send the appointment form. So as long as I know who I'm putting down for that.
That's fine. I mean, since you guys moved and Steve's on the record accepting, I'll bring an interim appointment form for you to sign next week.
Okay.
If discussions lead to a point where we're appointing someone anyway, there won't be any need for it.
Well, very good. I appreciate you all working together on that. And hopefully we'll have a better situation going forward.
Absolutely.
All right. Clayton, what else do you have?
I have nothing else today. Thank you.
Okay. Shannon, do you have anything?
I'm good.
What?
I know. Letting you off easy.
All right. Anything else from the general public?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Did I